Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about programming languages. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, is it true that learning a programming language takes 10 years? Nope. Well, I'm glad that we solved that, because that's gonna make a really quick video. No, it doesn't take 10 years. I don't know where you heard that. It takes, I think, what is it, the saying is that it takes 10,000 hours, something like that, to get to a competitive level, or like to truly master something, which is, if I like roughly estimate that, that's like 5 years or something like that, which incidentally is the amount of time that people think that you should have on your CV before you're a senior software developer, or at least until they feel comfortable calling you that. That's a whole, like, I have so many videos about that topic, but no, it doesn't take 10 years. The thing that takes 10 years, depending on your learning, is to become a master of the entire IT industry. That is what it would take roughly. It's going to take you about 10 years to do that. And I'm not talking about becoming a senior software developer. I'm talking about like literally mastering everything that has to do with IT in terms of I'm not once again, I'm not talking about, like, being everything from a software developer to a QA to a pen tester, or to like being a tech lead or stuff like that. What I'm talking about is to fully understand how IT works, how all the tools, the ecosystems work, how people think, how customers work, how different companies do business, etc., etc. Where I would argue that if you have 10 years within IT as like a software, if you have quality years, you are more than capable of doing practically everything. You should at the very least be. That's where you're sort of able to do everything from leading a team to leading a company to leading to doing like software development, depending on the path that you take. Right, it's all down to the quality and how you spend your years. But after 10 years, I think that the best way of summarizing it, you're sort of the point where you're eligible to be a general of software, if that makes sense. Like, you've done so much at that point that you can basically do anything, or like be responsible for fairly large projects, or be held accountable to be a CTO or things like that. That is, I think, a fairly fair assessment. And I mean, to learn just the programming languages, guys, it depends on how well you want to know something. I mean, you can learn JavaScript in they claim 10 minutes. And sure, if I show you a bunch of code examples which all with the basic syntax, congratulations, you now know JavaScript. I can probably get that down to 2 minutes if I just show you a really big picture of all the constructs. Then you know it because you saw it. But when it comes to like getting good at the language and like really knowing it, as I said, it's not so much about the language. It's more about your seniority as a software developer, and that's why I tell people to focus more on core skills, because each programming language is practically identical. Well, most of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are so similar that it's almost the same thing. And the better you get at the core skills and the more languages, in a sense as well, if you learn more languages, it's also going to be easier for you to spot the differences and the similarities between them. It's going to take you no time at all to adopt the next language. Sure, you're not going to be as you won't be able to just pull stuff from memory as readily, but the same constructs and the rules sort of are the same, so they still apply. I remember back in my university days when there was we spent, I think, half our semester learning C and just working in C, and then we had a final project that could either be done in C or in PHP. Could be a web thing as well, right? And the time it took, the preparation we got to learn PHP was one lesson, one something like that. I think it was they just kind of went through it, and that's it, because the syntax, although these are very different languages with very different strengths and weaknesses, the syntax is so like it's so almost identical in terms of like there's a variable, there's a loop, and so forth. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not the same language in any way. As I said, they're very different, but the course, like the administrators and like the teacher was so confident in that we already knew how to sort of programming. I mean, it was a beginner level course, so we didn't have to do something really advanced. So you could adopt PHP, and it really was that simple. I think I spent 2 weeks on my project, and it wasn't all that difficult. Like, I mean, sure, I had to learn how to set up like a basic Apache server with PHP and so forth. But once you sort of understood how to do that, and you kind of sort of knew how like a web server was working, which didn't take all that much studying. I think it took me, as I said, 2 weeks, something like that. It took me to build my thing, and it was like a little web application that did riddles where you could like click and like try to answer riddles. It was very simple. I still think I might still have that video somewhere on my YouTube channel. Like this, it was like the first thing I ever made in PHP, and probably the first coding challenge I ever did, something like that. So if you're interested, it's like the oldest thing I have on my channel. And so learning, I mean, I could produce things. I was not by any means a senior software developer, but learning PHP, it did not take 10 years. And most languages don't take that long. But as I said, it's not about the programming language, guys. It's about understanding how programming works. It's about understanding libraries and different, like the ecosystem of tools and like how all the various tools work. And it's about understanding how software development works. That's the thing that's going to take a long time. Because when you realize that your code is just a piece in a big ecosystem of other things, everything from, you know, computer hardware, like the actual computer that is running somewhere, to how you host your websites in like cloud solutions, and how the different systems there work, and how you monitor things, or error logging, or talking to stakeholders, and metrics, business models, and like agile work practices, and working in teams, and version control, and oh god, there's so much. Like, there's so many areas that is going to take you so many years. You're going to have a lot of fun with it, I promise you. If you really want to learn this stuff, it takes many years. But you don't have to worry that just to learn how to code and basically get a job, or like do it at a professional level, that you're going to have to wait for 10 years. That's not how long. That's not something you have to worry about. So what I want you to take away from this is that no, it does not take 10 years to learn a programming language. I mean, shit, I could speak Swedish when I was, I don't even remember, but it did not take 10 years to learn how to speak my own native language. So I suspect that you're not going to have to wait for 10 years to learn a programming language. Depending on how you define it, you can learn a programming language in an afternoon. The thing that takes time is to learn everything around it, like the entire ecosystem of things that you need to know in order to deliver modern day software. You can think of it as similar to knowing how to do work on a car. If you are a mechanic by today's standards, sure, back in the day, being a mechanic, you sort of knew, because the cars were simpler back then, that you would know. It was feasible for you to know all the things that was necessary in order to build basically a car from scratch. And people still know how to build cars from scratch. But if you're going to build like a modern day luxury, like high-tech type of car, it's almost impossible for you to as a single individual learn that. And in some cases you might be able to learn most of it, but it's going to take a long time, because cars are becoming more advanced, so just as computers and software in general, like, everything is becoming more complicated. You know, next frontier is going to be AI. Holy shit, that's going to be a whole different chapter in digital solutions. So it's continuously growing and becoming more and more complicated. So 10 years to learn a programming language? No, but definitely 10 years to become someone who basically knows how all this stuff works, and who is in a position where they can literally say, where they can fairly confidently do everything from doing all the coding all the way up to basically leading the entire company, or taking on the responsibility of leading a department, or like setting out goals and strategies and so forth for companies within the software space. That I can basically guarantee you. Have a great day.